Hope Was Here by Joan Bauer. Chapter 17. Must be something to do with the water around here, Flo said the next day when she saw Braverman and me holding hands in the supply closet. Addie pulled me aside. What's going on with you and Braverman? I told her. Well, Addie said, she'd been expecting it. What's going on with you and GT? I asked. She was saved from answering by the sound of the kitchen timer. My hazelnut pound cakes are ready, she announced, and left me standing there. It's a fair question, I shouted after her. School. It came up on me like indigestion. I wasn't ready to go back, not even to be a junior. Unfamiliar halls, unfamiliar teachers. I'd been feeling so at home in Mulhoney, working at the diner and being involved in GT's campaign. Now, suddenly, I felt new and odd again. I was ahead in math and English, and behind in science and history. I had to take sophomore ethics class as a junior, even though I'd taken it in Brooklyn. Wisconsin ethics takes a year to go through. Brooklyn's type A. You only need a semester. I slogged through my first week and managed to find all my classes. My English teacher liked my writing. She said I had creative boldness. My history teacher said I had yet to grasp the value of stating a clear thesis. I've always been a person who meanders around to find truth. This is death in the 5-paragraph essay. In political science, my best class, Mr. Sage said, "We're living in a political science lesson right now in Mulhoney. We're going to examine this local election and see how it speaks to us on a larger scale." That sounded interesting, but I wanted to be back full-time at the diner working with Braverman instead of only part-time after school and on the weekends. We were having the best time working together, too, except when he'd make a mistake on an order and I'd have to be an advocate for my customer. I always mentioned it sweetly. "You didn't say hold the bacon, Hope." "Braverman, I said it twice." "You must have said it to someone else." "I said it to you." Clang. "Don't clang pots at me." Other than that, hope was in the air. Addie introduced the Keep Hoping sandwich, and instantly it became a comfort food classic. Anastasia started holding her bottle like a drowning person clutching a life preserver. Even when it was empty, she wouldn't let go. Flo said it was what we all had to do to get GT elected. Hold on to what we know is right and not let anyone take it from us. And then, on September 29th, we got the news we'd all been waiting for. GT's doctors declared that he was in remission. You have to understand the full light that was released in GT's face when he came back from the hospital with Pastor Hall and gave us the news. It was the kind of light that could open a daylily in the middle of a long, cold night. He walked into the kitchen, walked up to Addie and told her. She started crying. "Okay," he said. "I think we need to get married." We all froze at that one. Addie looked right at him. "You don't have enough to do these days? You need something else on the schedule?" Everything I am, I owe to this woman. The news of GT's remission swept through town like a whirlwind that couldn't be stopped. Then we got more good news. Brenda Babcock arrested the 2 thieves who'd burglarized Adam's house. They were found at a pawnbroker shop in Madison trying to sell Mr. Pulver's campaign button collection. Both thieves had the same name, too. Carbinger. "She's closing in," Flo said to me, "and we've got ourselves one nervous sheriff." 3 days later, we had a blur of misinformation. The sheriff said he was releasing the Carbingers. There was no evidence linking them to the crime. Brenda Babcock said the Carbingers had agreed to a plea bargain with the district attorney to tell what they knew. They knew a lot. They said they were paid by the Real Fresh Dairy to frighten people who opposed the mayor, like Braverman. They claimed the sheriff had been paid off, too, to turn his head while they robbed houses. Sheriff Greaves denied everything. Cranston Broom from the dairy said he was appalled, disgusted, and very, very innocent. Mayor Millstone said it was all a trick by the opposition to hurt his campaign. "Tell the truth," blared the Mulhoney messenger. The polls showed GT pulling 7 points ahead of Eli Millstone. We got revved like the Gospel of Grace van that had just gotten a new carburetor for the occasion. It's interesting how polls take over a campaign. My political science teacher, Mr. Sage, said it was part of our society's need to know the score before the game is over. GT put on a full-court press to convince Addie that they should get married ASAP. "I've got 6 chickens to roast, pies that need to be baked." He laughed. "Can't you put your to-do list down for anything?" But now the rightness of them getting married seemed to be hitting me from everywhere. I'd been so afraid, deep down, that GT would get sicker. I'd been afraid to think about what it could mean for me personally if he married Addie. He would be my father, sort of. Everything in me wanted to start dancing around the room at that thought. But just as fast, another one hit. What if GT's not thinking of it that way? That would be all out awful. I was in my room, leafing through the dads. I'd always thought my dad was going to have a trench coat and thick hair and be pretty young and healthy. But that's the problem with fantasy. When the thing you want shows up, you have to regroup visually because it's never the way you picture it. A skinny bald guy in remission would not have made it into this collection. But GT was better than all these trench-coated fantasy fathers put together. I held Edgar, my pelican, smoothed back my hair. Well, Dad, it's sure taking you long enough to find me. Not that I'm complaining, but now I'm expecting you to do the right thing. I said the last part pretty loud. I waited. And hope fluttered into the room like a butterfly getting ready to light. Braverman and I were driving home from the Oktoberfest held in the little park off Grimes Square. Oktoberfest is a German celebration that gets a lot of play in Wisconsin. It has real pluses and minuses. Pluses: sausage, coarse grain rye bread, and apple strudel. Minuses: 2 guys playing an accordion and a tuba. Braverman touched the back of my neck in that way that made me shiver. He smiled at me, turned on the radio in his old Toyota, and we couldn't believe what we heard. Why can't G.T. Stoop tell the truth about his health? An unidentified, high-ranking hospital administrator verified that Mr. Stoop's leukemia has gone into his brain. It's just a matter of time before we all see what the doctors already know. Is your future worth that risk? Vote for Eli Millstone if you care at all about the future of Mulhoney. Braverman pulled over on the side of the road. We sat there stunned. It was a lie as sure as anything. And that lie played 3 times an hour on radio and TV until people were saturated with falsehood. GT denied it. His doctor denied it. But it kept pressing the deception over and over. My teacher, Mr. Sage, said if you hear a lie often enough, it begins to sound like the truth. Why can't G.T. Stoop tell the truth about his health? Why? 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 My head pounded with fury. I couldn't focus. Blew off my homework 3 days running. Cecilia Culpepper screamed for fairness on the front page. Braverman and I went knocking on doors to try to calm the storm and saw firsthand how frightened people were. Jillian went online to alert the teen troops. We hit the phones and called voters. Braverman put out a new issue of the Students for Stoop newsletter with the headline, Anatomy of a Lie. But it was like watching floodwaters rise. There didn't seem to be anything we could do about it. Albee Hall drew his church together to pray. GT started losing points in the polls. Sid Vole was calling from the road, saying the only thing to do was hit back hard, blow for blow. No, sir, GT said. I don't play like that. GT kept his grueling schedule, talking to people until he was ready to drop. People with Stop Stoop posters followed him everywhere. We were working as hard as we could to get the truth out. The hospital even denied the report, showed GT's medical records. But the lie was everywhere, and it was winning. He called upon everyone to read his doctor's report, but what you didn't read was how his brain has been affected by the cancer. He called upon churches and civic groups to support him, knowing full well that he only has a few more months to live. G.T. Stoop wants to be our mayor so much, he will lie, cheat, and misrepresent himself and his condition to get a few moments of glory. On election day, vote for truth and health. Re-elect Eli Millstone. The polls had G.T. neck and neck with Millstone now. One poll showed him 3 points behind. You going to listen to a poll? Albee Hall shouted from his pulpit. Or your soul. Election day. Close to the longest day of my life. We were everywhere. Making last-minute campaign phone calls, passing out newsletters and buttons, cheering on the Gospel of Grace evangelical van that shuttled back and forth, bringing GT supporters to the polls. Shouting foul when big groups of Millstone supporters went through town tearing down GT's posters. Hoping with all we had that we'd done enough. We're going to make it, Braverman said, and kissed me on the forehead and went off to vote. I sensed the hope building. We all did. I'd never been part of something so important before. When I left Brooklyn, I would have paid money to get out of making this move. Now, here I was, working with other kids to help get a good man elected. Here I was with the greatest boyfriend of the 21st century. The polls closed at 9 p.m. It was going to be close. But we could feel the victory in our hearts. We hung on to that faith and wouldn't let go. Back in the welcome stairways to wait and wait some more. Addie served us light and fluffy victory waffles with butter and warmed maple syrup. We told ourselves how GT was going to pull it off. how sweet it was going to be, and we weren't going to be bad winners. At 11:23, the results finally came in. GT had lost by 114 votes. There were simply no words, only tears.